Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This will be my spoiler review for the MCU miniseries Echo. If you're new to the channel, I post weekly movie and TV reviews. I've also started an MCU retrospective series starting with Captain America: The First Avenger, that you can find here as well. I'll be continuing that series next week with Captain Marvel retrospective. If you like the content I'm putting out and are interested in future content, please like, share, subscribe, or comment down below. It helps the channel out a lot, and I would greatly appreciate it. With that being said, let's dive into Echo. Oh Echo, you cruel temptress. How you had me fooled. Look, I didn't hate this series, but it falls in line with the myriad of mediocre disneyplus MCU projects that we've been presented with in the past few years. It could have been so much better than it was, and this one, more than the rest, left me so disappointed. Look, I'm eager for the MCU to correct itself and return to releasing consistently high-quality content. I've been craving a jump back to stories involving street-level heroes and villains, and I thought, based off the incredible teaser trailer and the marketing campaign, that this show would satisfy both of those desires, and boy, was I wrong. There are some aspects of this show that hit on some key characteristics that I feel like Marvel has been lacking in, but there's so much of this show that is just a convoluted mess, that the positives don't necessarily counterbalance the negatives. The plot is stretched all over the place. Like the vast majority of MCU Disney Plus original series, Echo bites off more than it can chew. It builds up a conflict and then climaxes in an uneventful and disappointing fashion. This has been such a common and frustrating theme with these projects, save for a select few. From the onset, there's just so many plot threads and so much setup that as we progress through the series, there isn't enough time to resolve everything, and in the end, nothing substantial really happens, and you're left thinking, okay, what was this show even about? I think the biggest issue with Echo is it wants to be so many things. It wants to establish Echo as a staple hero in the MCU by presenting her backstory, while also setting up her feud with Kingpin. Concurrently, it aims to reintroduce Kingpin as a formidable threat in this universe and progress his story along as well. Oh, and Daredevil is here as well. So it also seeks to connect the dots with our street-level roster of heroes for future stories down the line. And because this show attempts to do so much in so little time, it doesn't dedicate enough of its story to any one thread. I can't quite comprehend these strange 5 to 8 episode arcs that Marvel is shooting for. It doesn't make any sense. The Netflix Marvel shows were beloved, for the most part. They had their flaws certainly, but generally, people enjoyed them. That being said, the one negative aspect of those series that almost every viewer agreed upon was that the episode count was too high. With 13 episodes, there ended up being 1 or 2 episodes that felt like filler, and then 1 episode that easily could have been wrapped with another. I feel like 10 episodes for a Marvel series or miniseries is ideal. With the recent MCU television projects, Marvel keeps mandating this very bizarre 5 to 8 episode run, and the story is never completely fleshed out. You're left with stories that ultimately feel unfinished. Not to mention, the episodes for Echo range anywhere from 30 to 42 minutes in length, and that includes opening and closing credits. Just taking a closer look at the individual episodes, the first episode is entirely compromised of 2 things. 1, a refresher of things we already saw in the Hawkeye series, and secondly, a quick run-through of Maya's childhood and her history with Kingpin. So right off the bat, we only really get 4 episodes to develop the actual story of this series. We don't even really dive into the conflict between Maya and Kingpin until episode 4. Episode 2 and 3 follows Maya's return to her hometown in Oklahoma, and the setup of all her previous relationships with the people there, as well as her plan to take over control of Kingpin's empire. Finally, in episode 4, we see the initial confrontation between Maya and Kingpin. Kingpin offers her his empire on the basis that she returns with him to New York. This leads into the finale and the final showdown between Maya and Kingpin, where she finally establishes herself as a hero, and we get introduced to her power set. On top of all of this, each episode kicks off with flashbacks of Maya's native ancestors to give context into what her eventual abilities will be. Due to all of this rushed setup and story progression, by episode 5, the conflict is resolved so abruptly and the final fight is so lackluster that we're left with a shell of an actual story. Marvel has done this so often with these Disney Plus shows, and I really believed this one would be an outlier. It could have been, had it had more time to breathe. It really is a shame because I think Kingpin is one of the most interesting and well-developed MCU villains. I think Maya is inherently an interesting character as well. It's no secret that the fans are praying for a return to these types of street-level, grounded stories. I think had the writers zeroed in their focus on Maya's mission to suffocate and overtake Kingpin's criminal empire, it could have been pretty compelling. But when you throw in all the subplots of Maya reconnecting with her family and friends, and the baggage and conflicts that brings with it, plus the desire to discuss Native American culture and folklore, you lose your footing along the way. I want to be clear, all of that is fine. You can, in theory, accomplish all of that in one season, but not within the confines that this project was allotted. I do have to give credit where it is due, though, and not everything about this series is bad. There are enjoyable aspects of this show we'll explore, and I appreciate Marvel hearing the complaints of the fandom and at least attempting to make more grounded, more serious, smaller scale stories. I just wish it wasn't so rushed. Let's discuss the characters. I genuinely think Maya is a fascinating character. I like what we saw of her in Hawkeye, and while I didn't think her character in that series warranted her own spin-off, I have become more interested in her character, and I'm glad we get more backstory, especially in regards to her relationship with Kingpin. That relationship really is the heart of this series. That being said, I can't help but think this may have functioned more efficiently as a one-shot akin to Werewolf by Night. But I digress. Back to Maya. We are introduced to her as a child, delving into her childhood being raised by two loving native parents. This all takes a turn when her mother dies in a tragic car accident, the same one that took Maya's leg. Her father, having no other choice, accepts a job working under Kingpin in New York City, stripping Maya away from the only positive influences she had in her life. Her father strives to keep her away from his criminal lifestyle. However, after watching her father die in front of her eyes, she's forced down the same familiar path as he was, leading her to lust for revenge against the person who took him from her, only to realize that it was the only other person she trusted, Kingpin. She doesn't begin this story as a hero. She's a criminal through and through, an underboss working under Kingpin's tutelage. It isn't until all of the secrets are revealed that she commences her transition from criminal to hero. Well, anti-hero, really. And that piece is good. It's every facet that revolves around that lacks substance. My one nitpick is that her power set that is revealed in the finale is sort of vaguely defined. In the comics, Echo has the power to mimic her enemy's fighting style. She echoes their skill set. In the series, her power is ancestral evocation, so she can call on skills and abilities from her ancestors. Her mother explains that their attributes echo through time into Maya. I don't mind the change considering we already have a character, Taskmaster, in this universe that has the ability to mimic fighting styles. I think the addition of this power is intriguing, but we only see Echo use this in a handful of scenes, and we don't really understand what all they actually entail. I hope that portion of the character gets elaborated upon in future stories. Throughout the series, watching Maya transition from a criminal into a hero, it is compelling. You see her go from someone driven by hate, rage, and revenge, and they evolve into a character that's able to forgive and understand and empathize with the villain, aka Kingpin. And I think it's a story that many can relate to, and I definitely enjoyed that aspect of the series. Kingpin is Kingpin. D'Onofrio owns this role. He was born for it. Every time he plays this character, he embodies him. It's one of those roles where an actor disappears into a character so much that you can't tell the actor from the role they're portraying. It still remains perfect casting, and I'm so excited for more Kingpin, especially as we're teased to a New York City mayoral run. He's a curiously flawed and broken character. You root for him to overcome his trauma and his demons, but you also hope that one day he gets his comeuppance. I only wish we would have gotten more scenes dealing with his relationship and conflict with Maya, as we only really get one full episode with him in it. Oh, and by the way, Daredevil is here for about less than a minute, I think. I expected him to be in this more, and apparently based on the trade rumors, he initially was supposed to have a larger role. The cameo we do get of him though, fighting Maya, is electric. It's the Daredevil we loved and missed from Netflix. It's definitely a letdown that this is all we get, but it is a nice tease of what's to come for this character. The rest of the supporting cast, comprising of Maya's friends and family, is passable. There are some interesting characters like her Uncle Henry, played by Chasky Spencer, who himself is associated to Kingpin's empire, and Skull, played by Graham Greene, who plays Maya's supportive yet comical grandfather figure. The rest of the cast, however, maintains the same roadblock that embroils the series as a whole. We just don't get enough time with these characters to care enough about them and their stories. I will say, outside of the finale, I was pretty satisfied with the action as a whole. You can tell Marvel is turning back towards gritty, close-quarters action. The standout scene is definitely Maya's encounter with Daredevil. While brief, it is a blast to watch. Watching Maya subdue Kingpin's goons inside the bowling alley is entertaining as well. We get solid choreography, solid camera work, and even though the story isn't up to snuff, the action really does feel throwback compared to what we have been getting the past few years. I just wish the final confrontation with Kingpin was more engaging. The final episode, the entire series really, builds to that moment, and it's over in mere minutes. Maya steps into a trap set up by Kingpin, two of her allies are captured, and in a blink or you'll miss it moment, Maya frees her family, gifts them with powers, and they together subdue Kingpin and his men, and that's that. It's over in a second. For a finale, in what essentially amounts to a boss fight, it was incredibly underwhelming, to say the least. Visually, it's pretty good for what it is. That's not a negative. It just means that this is a grounded, more personal story, so there isn't really a ton to talk about. There's not very much CGI. Most of the effects seem practical, which I really appreciate. A lot of the sets are tangible and authentic, filmed on location, which is refreshing compared to some of the bland CGI, green screen messes we've come accustomed to expect from Marvel nowadays. The setting is great too. I enjoyed taking a detour from the big city to small town Oklahoma. It's always fun to see different corners of this universe that we haven't explored yet, and it keeps it novel and appealing. And integrating Native American culture into the series was a positive as well. Directing wise, it's sufficient. There's nothing really that pops out in the series that makes me go, oh, who is this person? 4 of the 5 episodes were directed by Sidney Freeland, and one by Catriona McKenzie, and they're both solid overall. Nothing too heavily criticized on the directing front, just nothing really to write home about. Moving into the costume section, Marvel has been doing this thing lately where a hero begins a movie or show with a stronger costume than when they end it. They tend to overdo the designs with the final costume, and Echo is no different. At the inception of the series, Maya doesn't have a set outfit, it's just her standard tracksuit mafia getup we're used to from the Hawkeye series. It isn't until she tags one of Kingpin's trains in episode 3 where she gets a stylish, stealthy heist getup. And I much preferred that fit over what we get in the finale. What we are shown in the finale isn't terrible by any means. It's interesting and unique, and I actually like it a lot. Maya receives a homemade costume from her grandmother that harkens back to classical Native American style. It's a great look that appears authentic towards Native American culture. We really haven't seen an outfit like it in the MCU so far, and it's great. That being said, with the violent and steely street-level stories that are being hinted at and rumored for this character's future appearances, I just don't think this costume makes much sense in terms of practicality and reliability. But for the story, it fits. For Kingpin, there isn't much to recap. He sports a few classic Kingpin suits. He always looks classy and dapper in whatever you put him in. They're all great, and they fit his personality well. The post-credits scene teases us to potential New York City mayoral run in Kingpin's future, possibly bringing him into conflict with Daredevil, Echo, and other street-level / New York heroes. It's exciting that it seems likely we're transitioning back towards the heyday of Marvel television. Hopefully. All in all, I enjoyed some aspects of Echo, and I do appreciate what Marvel wants to and is trying to do with this character. But she deserved a better solo outing than what we got. It suffers from the same issues that fans have been hammering on about since these Disney Plus series began to air. I hope Marvel takes a long, hard look at these series going forward and revamps their processes, because the characters, the fans, and the stories all deserve better. I do think this one is worth checking out just for the throwback nature of the action and the set pieces alone, and of course, Kingpin himself. And if you are a big MCU fan, even if you haven't liked a lot of the recent projects, I think you will find some enjoyment out of this. I know the vast swath of this fandom, me included, has been overly frustrated with Marvel's output as of late, and although Echo suffers from a lot of these same issues, I do think the tide is turning back in the right direction, and I have hope for the future of this franchise.